Hi, and welcome to this live reading from Journeys Through Collection, Books 1 through 3 by James Talisman, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Book 3, Chapter 1. Ice Planet Proxima, located in the Proxima Galaxy of Universe 3. The wind rushed through the barren landscape as snow flurried about land illuminated by an almost constant dusk-type setting. Any life in such a harsh environment would be hardened to the elements, with survival the primary goal. Two bright lights appeared and began to take human-like forms. Within seconds, Xenon and Raphael stood on the hard-packed, snowy ground. Xenon, dressed in a light, loose-fitting shirt and pants with sandals, looked over at his ancient friend and smiled before saying, "I see you have chosen to dress for the occasion." Raphael looked down at the exquisite long winter coat she wore before looking back at Xenon and smiling. "I know we do not require bulky clothes to stay warm, but I always enjoy the opportunity to wear such lovely garments." The Celestial twirled around and admired herself again. Xenon laughed. "Royalty never leaves some, I suppose." The former member of the Central Race became serious as he stared toward the mountains in the distance. "My intuition tells me we should head there." He pointed toward a spot in a cluster of mountains. Raphael hooked her arm within Xenon's arm. "Lead the way, my handsome and lovely friend. The walk should be refreshing." A slight glow surrounded the two as they walked toward the location Xenon had indicated. The intense wind and snow could not pierce the luminous circle of light surrounding the couple. Almost to the huge mountain agglomeration, a cave entrance was now clearly visible. Xenon stopped and looked about. He looked toward Raphael and nodded. Raphael nodded back. Guard dogs. How quaint. Soon, a pack of huge wolf-like beasts started to come out of the sparse group of trees near the cave opening. While the ferocious animals resembled wolves, their massive jaws and huge muscular furry frames indicated a much more dangerous predator. Raphael's beautiful long coat with fur-type material at the collar and wrist disappeared to reveal an alluring female body now clothed in a light tunic made of bright colors. She started to move her hands in a circular motion as a ball of whitish-purple energy formed within. Xenon bowed his head slightly in what looked like prayer. Within seconds, his 6-foot male frame transformed into a muscular warrior with 4 arms. Standing almost 10 feet high, the powerful entity, dressed in battle leather with metal spikes protruding from the chest and forearm coverings, began to swing the huge swords in each arm in precise motions. The 20 or so beasts running toward the two Celestials barked and growled loudly as they approached at full gait. Raphael threw the ball of intense energy toward the lead creature. Upon contact with the beast, the energy bomb exploded, radiating whitish-purple light. The animal dropped in its tracks as its head blew into pieces of flesh and green blood. "Nice shot!" roared the massive warrior beast as he readied himself for the onslaught of creatures preparing to pounce. 4 of the beasts jumped up into the air toward the warrior with 4 arms. Each of the wolf-like animals were quickly sliced in half from the huge swords as the razor-sharp metal ran through their bodies like a knife slicing through butter. Raphael shot 4 more beasts with her energy weapon. The same gruesome results followed the impact of each hit. Just then, more of the wolf-like creatures came into view as they came out of the trees and began to lunge toward the two Celestials. Subduing more beasts with his swords, the huge warrior looked down at the extremely beautiful woman with teal-colored eyes as he shook off a couple more creatures that had latched onto his forearms. In a booming voice, he yelled, "I am tiring of this battle. How about we finish this up?" Raphael nodded with a grin on her face. "Okay, I was enjoying the target practice, but you are right. As always, we have a mission to finish." The woman, who seemed to exude a permanent royal nature in almost every situation, closed her eyes. The exquisite woman, who stood almost 6 feet tall, began to transform into a massive dragon. Within seconds, the huge beast with enormous wings lifted off the ground and flew toward the second pack of beasts, running toward the warrior with 4 arms. The gigantic dragon swooped down low toward the approaching pack of barking and growling wolf-like creatures and breathed whitish-purple flames at the running animals. The violent flames of energy engulfed the entire pack of lunging beasts, turning them all into soot and ash. Transformed back from their inner servitor creations, the two celestials walked around the burnt husks of numerous creatures entombed in ash. The now barren ground was still warm under their feet. Just outside the cave entrance, a faint light shone within the dark opening. Xenon studied the scene before them. It appears we have found what we came for. Rochelle sniffed the air and looked at the cave with repugnance. Caves can be so dank and disgusting. Most smell terrible as well. Xenon smiled to himself as he walked toward the entrance. Rochelle, wearing the long coat once more, followed the well-built male with trimmed beard inside. Xenon created a ball of energy in his hands and sent it in front of them to provide illumination as they walked through the almost completely dark tunnel. The faint light in the distance became brighter the further they moved along toward the glowing cavern now starting to take form ahead. Coming out of the tunnel, they admired the gigantic cavern. Bluish-green crystals encased in the massive rock walls surrounding the cave sparkled as luminous lighting from above shone down. On the other side of the enormous cave, a huge pile of the crystals gave off a bluish-green glow. The two moved down the slight incline as they advanced toward the bluish-green glow in the distance. The hard rock floor leveled out as they got closer. Without any warning sounds, the floor beneath their feet suddenly ran up their legs and surrounded their bodies in rock, leaving only their faces exposed. As Xenon and Rochelle looked about in shock, a tall, gangly being with large ears and a mouth full of razor-sharp teeth walked over to the rock-encased couple. He moved his hands together like he had just completed a dirty task with them. Rochelle stared at the strange-looking being with contempt. "Let us out of this, you overgrown troll!" She tried her best to look down at herself. "You have most likely ruined my jacket." Xenon closed his eyes. Soon, the solid rock substance encasing his body dissolved into rock dust. The troll-like being looked toward him with dismay. Understanding Xenon's telepathic suggestion, Rochelle closed her eyes. The floor rock around her body turned to dust. She looked down at her body with slight disgust before turning toward the tall, gangly alien being. "You have ruined my beautiful coat, you troll. I should roast you like a holiday pig." The damaged long coat disappeared to once again reveal the stunning woman dressed in the colorful tunic from earlier. Rochelle began to create a ball of energy between her moving hands. Xenon motioned for Rochelle to stop. "This being is no threat to us." Just then, loud clapping sounded from the darkness at the other end of the massive cavern. A humongous being with a height close to 15 feet tall started to emerge from the darkness. The crimson skin of the extremely muscular entity seemed to almost pull the darkness into its body as he continued to approach the three. Closer now, horns coming out of its forehead and piercing black eyes gave the huge beast a demonic look. Studying the gigantic being for a moment, Xenon nodded to himself. "While your appearance has changed, your inner essence conveys your identity. You are Diavolos, former leader of the Celestial Council." The huge beast nodded and looked down at Xenon. "Very astute. I would assume nothing different from a former member of the Central Race, especially one of your stature." The demonic-looking being turned toward Rochelle. "And there's the Queen, still as ravishing as ever. Oh, how I remember those moments we shared." Rochelle looked up at the huge alien with red skin. "I must say your new look is not appealing at all." Diavolos looked at himself before raising his arms. "Yes, my current form now aligns better with my ideals. The strongest will always rule creation." In his previous human form, Diavolos had the enduring beauty found in all celestial beings. His handsome features, intellect, and perfect body had surpassed even those from his peers. Due to his immense presence, he had quickly garnered enough respect and praise to become leader for the watchguards of creation. The king of the Celestials remained in his leadership position for eons of time. Unbeknownst to the other guardians, Diavolos had begun to harbor thoughts that ran against the principles held by most of the Celestial Order. Finally, unable to continue following ideals he no longer believed, the council leader stepped down. While he told the others he needed some solitude, the truth was he was finding it harder and harder to hide his true nature. Before leaving, he ensured others holding similar views on reality stayed. They would keep him informed on all celestial activities. Diavolos looked down at his second-in-command. "I see you have met my chief deputy. His talents are quite unique. Would you agree?" Rochelle sneered at the chief deputy. That overgrown goblin is lucky to still be alive. Diabolos laughed loudly. So beautiful and fiery. Such a wonderful combination. He motioned for the tall, gangly being to leave. The former Celestial leader's lieutenant bowed toward the huge crimson being. As you request, my majesty. The alien turned and walked back into the darkness at the other end of the humongous cave. Xenon looked up at Diabolos. We were asked by the council to come here to investigate suspicious activities. Seeing you here creates even further speculation. The new Celestial looked over toward the glowing pile of crystals. I believe it will be prudent to take one of those crystals for evaluation. Then we will be on our way. Diabolos laughed loudly once more. The arrogance of my celestial brethren. In truth, I set in motion a plan to get you both here. The massive being pulled 2 shimmering crystal pieces from the pouch strapped behind his back. He had used his immense powers to shield their identity from Xenon and Rochelle. Both Xenon and Rochelle shouted at the same time. Cube of Atonement! They watched in shock as the 2 pieces came together to form a cube. Diabolos pointed the multicolored crystal toward the 2 Celestials. Immense energy and a rainbow of colors shot down and encased Xenon and Rochelle. In a flash of brilliant light, the pair disappeared from the huge cavern.